Welcome to the Elaborate Topics podcast, where we focus on lab-specific strategies for medical laboratory professionals. We're proud to be the healthcare detectives that work behind the scenes to get the results needed to influence medical decisions. Let's grow together and jump right into the lab.
Welcome back to another episode of Elaborate Topics. I am your host and laboratory mentor for this podcast, Tywauna Wilson. I am so excited about the opportunity to talk with you all things medical laboratory. For those of you tuning in for the first time, Elaborate Topics is a weekly podcast where myself and my co-hosts, Lona Small and Stephanie Whitehead, bring you topics related to laboratory and leadership to help you excel inside and outside of the laboratory. I am super excited for today's show and the opportunity to interview my friend, Cedrick LaFleur. Cedrick is a motivational and empowering senior executive with more than 30 years of success across the healthcare, sales, leadership, and sports industries. Cedrick has been married to Tammie for 33 years. They have 2 children, TreKessa and Patrick. Cedrick is the founder and chief executive at LaFleur Leadership Institute, where he has created a successful company which delivers workshops, seminars, keynote speeches, and coaching for organizations focused on leadership development. Cedrick is an executive director with the John Maxwell Team. His responsibilities include executive leadership coaching and training, keynote speaking internationally. Recently, he was in Costa Rica helping lead a government leadership transformation for Costa Rican government. In addition, Cedrick is a Dave Ramsey certified master financial coach, where he provides financial literacy training to individuals and organizations across the U.S. Cedrick is the chairman of the Executive Leadership Circle, which is a private organization where thought leaders discuss and address global topics. Finally, he serves as founding partner and president of Lake Charles Education Collaboration, Incorporated, a 501c3 education-based think tank. Their focus is to help low-performing and failing schools improve academic outcomes. Cedrick recently retired as regional sales manager from Abbott Laboratories after serving for 22 years. Prior to his Abbott career, Cedrick served 10 years in the clinical laboratory setting in the U.S. Air Force and civilian sectors. He was a blood bank supervisor, so kudos to the blood bank people out there, chemistry supervisor in the Air Force, and QA/QC lab manager in the civilian sector. Hey, Cedrick, welcome to the lab. How are you?
I am always doing great. Well, thank you very much, Tywauna, for having me on. I'm excited about being here today.
I am super excited to have you on. I know that you have been able to transcend and be successful inside the laboratory and outside of the laboratory. So let's just jump right in and talk about your laboratory journey and everything that you're doing today.
Absolutely. I'm excited about it. So I'm sorry. I was waiting for a question. I'm sorry. So around my lab journey, let me just tell you a little bit about my lab journey. So you said I spent 22 years. 22 years with Abbott Laboratories. But before then, I was in the United States Air Force, and I spent 7.5 years in the U.S. Air Force as a blood bank supervisor and a chemistry supervisor. And before I left the Air Force, I went out into the civilian marketplace to get a job so I could work several years before I got out and worked in Rockledge, Florida at Woolstoff Hospital Lab, and definitely enjoyed my time there, and I promoted up through the ranks and became the laboratory QA/QC manager before I left there. And I definitely enjoyed that time. And then I left Woolstoff and and joined Abbott Laboratories and spent 22 years. I started at Abbott actually as a technical rep on their customer support hotline. So when laboratorians called in about their instruments not working, they was calling and talking to me. And then I eventually promoted on to being a technical rep out in the field, where I'd go into labs to train them on how to use Abbott's equipment. And at one point I promoted into sales. And it was an interesting journey going into sales, because the guy that hired me said, "I'm only hiring you because you have the potential to be a sales rep." And I said, "No, I want to be the best technical rep that Abbott has." That's my lab side coming out, right? Well, until I traveled with a sales rep who didn't have a lab background. And let me tell you what, Tywauna, that day, I'll never forget it. It was a Friday. It was 4 o'clock, and we got out of that lab. I called the district sales manager, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm in the office. I'm about to leave for the weekend." I said, "Don't leave." I said, "I need an hour to get back to Houston. I need to talk with you." And he said, "Okay, about what?" I said, "I'll tell you when I get there." So I drove to the office, and I said, "Look, if this guy can sell anything, I'll be one of the best reps in Abbott's history." That's exactly what I told him. Because this guy didn't have a technical background, didn't come from the lab, and he was selling into the lab, and some of the questions he asked the customer didn't make sense. And the customer and I, because I was their technical rep, I told the customer, "Don't worry about it, I got it, we're good." And then from day on, the district manager started laughing, and he goes, I told you you were going to be in sales." And that changed the rest of my career forever, that one moment in time. So then I spent 22 years with Abbott running part of the sales organization and global marketing organization.
Wow. And that's interesting that you say that, because the focus for this show is around diverse career opportunities. And so many times laboratorians feel like they are limited to, I'm in a hospital laboratory working on first, second, or third shift, and that's all that this profession has to offer. So to hear that you went from the hospital laboratory to being a tech support hotline specialist, definitely know what that is and what that means, and then went to the rep, the technical rep, and then into sales. That right there is just interesting, the way that you were able to maneuver your career. So what risk did you take? So I know that you said you transitioned, but that sounds kind of risky, moving from inside of the lab on the bench, and it sounds like you were very good technically, to now you're out here selling the product. And as lab people, sales kind of scare us sometimes.
I know it does. And it scared me at the time, too. I was like, no, I don't want to be a sales guy. No, that's not what I want to do. I'm a science guy. So here's the thing. So there's 3 risks that I really took. And the first one is, my biggest risk was leaving the United States Air Force. Because here's the thing. It's a government job. You're in the Air Force. All you got to do is show up to work every day, and the paycheck is going to come on the 1st and the 15th of the month. Right? I don't even have to think about it. It just automatically deposited into my account. I could have just, and obviously there's all kind of things you do in the military. However, it's not really risky. But my risk was, I decided that I'd accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in my young Air Force career, because I went in the Air Force while still in college and said I wanted to complete my college degree, and then I would leave. So once I completed my degree, that's what I did. So in the middle of my second term, you sign up for 4-year terms. During the middle of my second term, I decided that I was ready to go. So I made all the phone calls I needed to make and all this type of stuff. And, in fact, my supervisors in the lab didn't even know until, I had 2 weeks left that I was leaving. And that's
Wow.
not the norm in the military. Yes, I was. I was very intentional about what I was doing because I wanted to leave. So I did that. But then before I left the lab, the military, like I said, I started working in a civilian hospital, and so I started in as a bench tech and quickly rose up through the ranks because I was not one that was going to be, I didn't want to be a bench tech for 5 years. I didn't want to be a bench tech for however long some of those other bench techs had been there. That it was not my dream. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just wasn't my dream. So I started, this is how I became the QA/QC person. I started really working, because I was doing it in the Air Force, quality control. So I started showing them all the things I knew. And the person who had been running that department was, or leading that effort for the lab, was going to be retiring. So I started my politicking about, hey, this is what I want to do. Here's how we should do it. Eventually, when that person retired, they promoted me to that position. So then a couple of months in, the hospital purchased like all of these clinics, these outreach clinics back then. This is late 80s, early 90s, okay? And so we had like 20 different clinics that we were managing. Well, QA/QC needed to be done in all those labs. So who was in charge of that? I was in charge of that as well. And that was nice, okay? Remember, hospitals love to have you to have initials behind your name and give you a lot of responsibility. However, what doesn't normally come with that is pay, the zeros, okay? And I said to my lab manager, director, I said, look, I'll do this. I love doing it, and it's fun, but I need a pay raise. And to his credit, he went out and championed that cause for me. He went to HR. He went to the VP of HR. He did his due diligence. And they came back a few weeks later and said, no go. We can't do that. I said, not a problem. Just know that this is my 6-month notice. Now, that's what I literally said to them. I said, this is my 6-month notice. And they said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, in 6 months, I won't be here. I said, so this gives you an opportunity to let me train someone. And they said, well, why would you? I said, because you don't value me. You see, because I can't go to the bank with, I'm in charge of all of these clinics and I have all this responsibility. This is exactly what the conversation we had. And so I proceeded that very next day to write down, I went in the lab, and every vendor that we had an instrument for, I wrote down the phone number for. And I reached out to them. This is before you can just go pull up stuff on the internet. I called their 800 number, found out the HR information, and I sent my resume to every vendor that we had in the lab, every one of them, from blood bank to micro to chemistry to virology to histology, every vendor. So I got a phone call from 2 vendors, Beckman Coulter and Abbott Laboratories. First was Beckman, and Beckman offered me a job to move from Rockledge, Florida to Hialeah, Florida, down Miami area, but they wanted me to pay for my move. And I told them, obviously, you don't want me. Because I said, look at this is the situation. You are a $1 billion company, and you're asking me to move myself. You don't want me. That's exactly what I told the HR person, and we hung up, and that was the end of that. A couple of weeks later, on April Fool's Day, 1996, I was interviewing for a lab manager's job, a lab director's job in another location, and I got home, and my wife said, hey, you got a call from Abbott Laboratories today. Now, I knew it was April Fool's Day. I initially thought it was April Fool's joke. So I called the young lady back. I'll never forget her name. Her name was Christy Schultz. I called her, and for the first 5 minutes, Tywauna, I had her trying to convince me that this was not an April Fool's joke. Because I was convinced it was an April Fool's joke. And finally we got past that, and I got the interview, did a phone interview. They flew me to Dallas. I did an interview with me and 6 other people I was interviewing with right on the panel. So it was just like, questions were coming left and right. So my risk was leaving the Air Force and leaving that constant, steady paycheck. And then the next big risk was, trying to figure out what I was going to do after I told the hospital that they were getting my 6 weeks notice. Now, and here's how I got the job at that hospital. So I went and applied for the position, a bench tech position. Mm-hmm. And on like today, this afternoon, the next morning, I called the lab director and I said, "Hey, I'm calling to follow up on my application that I put in." He goes, "Well, when did you put that application in?" And I said, "Yesterday afternoon." And he started laughing. He said, "Wait a minute, it's just like this morning, and you're telling me you did this yesterday afternoon." I said, "Yeah, but you have a position open, and I applied for it, and you haven't called me." He started laughing. He goes, "I need to talk with you just because of this phone call." And we set up an interview for a couple of days later. I walked in. He goes, "I'm hiring you right now." He says, "We don't even have to have a conversation. I just wanted to meet you in person." He goes, "Because no one's ever been that bold about and committed to a job like that." And he hired me. And, yeah.
Wow. Cedrick, that was good. I appreciate that you said, some of those risks were bold moves. Like, you're not going to pay for me to move to Florida, then this is not the job for me, or just saying, "Hey, I put in my application yesterday." Like, basically, what's up? Like, you got an opening and I got a talent. So what we going to do?
Exactly.
And I think that's amazing, because a lot of professionals struggle with that in their careers and really being their own best advocate. And as we know, advocacy starts with you first. So was that difficult to be your own advocate? I know it seems scary and all of that stuff, but was that difficult? Where did you learn those kind of skills from?
Yeah, you know what? I think it was youth and inexperience. That's really what I think it was. I really didn't. I didn't give it a lot of thought. I just knew that this is what I want to do. Why can't you see what I want to do and just let me do it? That's how I thought. But it wasn't scary at all. But I never did see myself as a salesperson. But doing that part, asking for what I want, wasn't scary. Saying what I want, knowing what I want, and how I want to do it. That part was easy. I've always been just a natural leader, though, and knowing the direction I want to go in, and then just moving in that direction. Very intentional. I wasn't calling it intentional back then, but I've always just been that type of take charge type person.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Even when I was in the Air Force and I got promoted to be blood bank supervisor before people who had been senior, and in the military, that just doesn't happen. They don't put you in charge over somebody else that outranks you. But it was just because of my leadership intentionality. They just called me in and said, "You're going to be in charge of blood bank." And I was like when? And it's like right now. And I was like, okay. And they said, just by the way, we need to get our AABB certification. So you're leading that charge. And I was like, okay. And it just happened.
Wow. So I know we talked a little bit about some career opportunities outside of the traditional laboratory, and I think this is important for our lab professionals to hear about some of these other opportunities that might be out there. I can say from personal experience, had it not been for the medical lab professional that I actually did my rotations with, she gave me this priceless, valuable bit of knowledge. She said, with a degree in medical laboratory science, you can do whatever you want to do. You are not limited to the clinical laboratory. You can work for the government. You can work in sales. You can work in industry, pharmaceutical. And that never left me. And I think that was crucial, because while she was telling me that, there were other professionals that were saying, I don't know why you're even going into this field. But it sounds like maybe you had one of those people in your life, or maybe it was you that had that foresight that I can do whatever I want with this degree. You want to talk a little bit more about some of those other opportunities that we may have some scientists right now going through a program, and all they are thinking about is working in a hospital lab on first, second, third shift.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It never was my dream to stay in the lab. I saw myself running a hospital or being in hospital administration. That's really where I saw myself. So the lab was just going to be my avenue in, and then I was going to elevate beyond that. As you know, it's very challenging to move outside the laboratory walls. For whatever reason, it's just difficult. But, hospitals there's some great hospitals and hospital systems in the United States. However, they are very good with loving you, having initials behind your name and giving you responsibility, but not want to give you the same type of respect and things in terms of promotions and in your paychecks. Because at the end of the day, we're all working to get paid, right? And
true.
I believe in the Deion Sanders methodology, and he says, I love football so much, I'll play it for free if everybody else, including the owners, are in here for free. He goes, but since they are not, then pay me my money. Well, it's the same thing, my philosophy in the clinical laboratory and in the hospital setting. I love it so much, I'll do it for free if everybody else is going to do that. And I'll do it for no promotions and no pay increases if everybody else is going to do that. Well, but everybody's not doing that. So then give me the same respect, right? So I have a degree. In some cases, advanced degrees. I understand the hospital environment, so pay me just like you pay doctors and nurses and radiologists and all this type of stuff. They just don't value the lab as much. So, and that's okay. That is what it is. There are other avenues and venues to help you be able to move in that direction. One is, obviously, you can be in the sales for a pharmaceutical or a diagnostic company. But you also have these technical roles, technical customer support, technical product development, technical writing. See, technical writing is about writing the package inserts. See, there's a whole department that does that. And in some cases, you have some professional technical writers, but you also have some clinical laboratorians that work for these diagnostic companies that are in technical writing, understanding the package insert, what needs to be in there, and putting it all together, understanding the language. You have chemistry specialists, hematology specialists, technical R&D. So these companies have R&D departments, right? And within their R&D department, they're making clinical laboratory equipment. Guess what they have? They have clinical labs. Now, they're not necessarily reporting out patient results, and they never hear the word stats, but they are putting out results because they have to run samples on those analyzers so that they can get the data to submit to the FDA for approval. You see, so as a clinical laboratorian, you would be doing the exact same thing. You just don't have to hear the word stat. And who would love to not have to worry about hearing the word stat anymore?
That is true. That is true. That's interesting that you said that, because I've taken a technical writing class, but I did not think about the technical writing being a profession or being an option. I did know that you could be a medical laboratory professional and work at the zoo or with animals or even on a cruise ship, which is, people don't even think about that. But that's a good one, the technical writing industry. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you think about the medical lab profession and it has all of these options, why do you think people are leaving? Like, why are they leaving the industry if there's all these options?
Well, what they're doing is they're leaving the hospital setting. They're just going out to corporate America. You know, in some cases, they may leave the entire industry altogether because they don't understand what their options are. Because obviously in the hospital, they're not training people and teaching them where you have alternatives to working in the lab. Your alternatives are go work for these other companies. That's not some lunch and learn that they provide to the lab during lab week, right? So most people don't know what's there. But the number one reason people are leaving is because of pay, right? And the next reason is because of parity with other people within the hospital setting. Well, what's the difference between a pharmacy tech and a laboratorian? What's the difference between a respiratory therapy tech and a medical laboratory technologist? What's the difference between, you know, in dental or all these other areas that's within the hospital, right? All of them have bachelor's degrees. Some have, you know, advanced degrees and all that type of stuff. All of them have certifications. So why is it there's this disparity in the laboratory? We know that 70% of medical decisions are made with laboratory tests, right? We know that in ER settings, about 41% of those ER visits need some type of lab result. If you look at cardiology and oncology, about 75% of those decisions are made with at least one laboratory test. When you talk about general med, same thing, you know, 38%. Family medicine, about 30%. Primary care, about 30%, a little over 30% actually. So every time someone walks in a hospital, more than likely they're going to need to have some type of laboratory test before they get out of that hospital so that the doctor can help them. So why are laboratorians not respected more and respected in terms of pay? That's really what it all boils down to. I mean, people can say, yes, we love laboratories, we respect laboratorians and all that type of stuff. That is nice, but nobody can go to the bank with that.
Sure can't. That is the truth.
You know, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Capital One, they're not going to say, oh, Tywauna, you have just such a great job in the laboratory. You're the director of this and you're over this. Yeah, we're going to give you your interest rate on that. And you know what? No, they're not going to do that. But that's why people are leaving. One is for pay. The other one is for parity. And then three, I would say people just don't understand what all their options are. But that part is not on the hospital. That part is on the laboratorian. Because you see, laboratorians are scientists by nature, and scientists by nature are not necessarily the most expressive in terms of talking and networking and being extroverted. The more introverted, they want to get behind the instrument and let me press that button, or get behind that tube and let me just do that, versus networking and connecting with other people.
That is very true, because medical laboratory professionals, a lot of them, and I'm in different groups on Facebook and LinkedIn about it, and they always complain about the lack of recognition. And I'm not sure if the lack of recognition is from the profession, if it's from their leadership at their respective employers. But what are your thoughts for the laboratorian that says, well, I'm not being recognized, which to me is kind of a loaded statement. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts on that for them to gain visibility?
Yeah, well, people are not going to recognize it until you recognize yourself. You see, if you see value in yourself, then you can add value to other people. And add value to other people means help them understand who you are, what you do, what value you bring, and all that type of stuff. But scientists, by nature, want people to just because I'm a scientist, you should respect me. Yeah, that's nice, but it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you have to toot your own horn. And, the hardest question for people to answer is, tell me about yourself. Tell me, why should I select you versus someone else? You see, they can tell me all the stuff that they do, but they can't tell me about them. Meaning, Tywauna, tell me who you are. I don't want to know about what you do. Tell me who you are. And laboratorians, scientists, typically struggle in that area, promoting themselves. They look at it as it's sales and it's promoting myself, and I shouldn't have to do that. No, well, you have to. This is why doctors and nurses and other groups are more visible in the hospital setting, because they champion for their cause better than laboratorians do. And, I remember listening to one of your podcasts and your other podcast, and you were talking about interviewing, and you said someone had interviewed and thought they were getting a first shift position, but they really got hired for a third shift position. And then someone else, I think, was like a pay issue or whatever. Well, it's because we don't speak up enough and ask all the right questions. Because we don't want to push someone's button to challenge them a little bit or make them think a little bit. It's not necessarily that I'll hear people say this a lot. I don't want to make them mad. Well, I don't want to make them mad by me keep asking, is this a first shift position or is it a third shift position? You see, I'm going to go into the interview clarifying what position we're interviewing for. So then that way, on the back end, I won't have that, wait a minute, that's not what I was interviewing for, that's not what I was hired for, type thing. And laboratorians have to speak up more. And when they speak up more as a group, they will get more recognition in the hospital setting.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with that. That is very important. That, again, it goes back to that self-advocacy and that clarity and awareness and asking great questions. So I know our laboratory professionals, they're thinking, what can I do to prepare myself for either advanced leadership roles or opportunities outside of the lab? What would you say for that, especially for that person is not really an advocate for themselves, and they're like, if I had to start developing something right now, what do I need to do so that I can be able to move up or move out?
Yeah, well, the first thing that they need to do is develop themselves for whatever type position it is that they want. So you can't give what you don't have, right? Growth has to be intentional. In other words, you got to start reading books. You got to take courses on leadership. See, just because you're a great bench tech doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader of people. See, and it doesn't mean that you're able to inspire other laboratorians to follow you. So you have to grow yourself, right? See, the next thing that you have to let people know that you want other opportunities, that you're looking for opportunities to lead. See, I live by that philosophy, and this is a sales-type philosophy, and laboratorians need to take this philosophy. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you ask for. You see? And
that's good.
I don't know what Tywauna wants unless Tywauna tells me. Right? I can think Tywauna might want a leadership position, but I don't know that 100% until Tywauna tells me, yes, I want a leadership position, or I want to do this, or I'm interested in whatever that is. So you gotta make yourself available. When this laboratory QA/QC position was getting ready to come up for, I knew that the person who was leading it was getting ready to retire. In the next year, she was going to retire. So I knew that I wanted to do that. I wanted that position. So then I talked to that person first, and then I started showing the other laboratorians and my lab director, lab managers, the other lab managers, because there were 6 lab managers and a director, showing them what I could do. I just bring in articles, bring in ideas, and all this type of stuff. In fact, back then, Westgard Rules was obviously out and all this type of stuff. However, Dr. Westgard had just came out with the OpSpecs charts. I mean, he literally had just launched it. I was reading about it because I'd gone to a seminar by David Plout and learned about it. I said, I'm going to bring this to the hospital. This will be a great initiative. So I went back the next week, and I paid for the material myself, meaning the books, and I brought it to lab director, and I said, hey, we need to work on implementing this in our system, these OpSpec charts. And he says, okay, we'll look into it. And so I did. I reached out to Dr. Westgard's group, and they worked with us to bring this in and start implementing this in our lab. So you see, what I was doing was I was being very intentional and working on the things that was important to me, that I knew was going to help me get into a right light for, hey, who can we give this position to? So you have to be very intentional. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you ask for, and you got to develop yourself as a leader and read books, take courses. All those things are available today.
That's good. So when you say develop yourself and read books, I know as lab professionals, we're all about reading books and attending courses, but what do you feel has been beneficial? So what kind of courses or what books would you tell somebody to read? I know the professional societies, ASCP, ASCLS, CLMA, AACC, and several others, they all offer these courses, and most of the courses are like one direction, meaning that you have somebody, they teach one something, and then I'm either listening to it or watching it. But it seems like, especially for lab people, that they would benefit more from an interaction, more of an interactive type of a program or course. So I just want to hear your thoughts a little bit more about, like taking courses and reading books, some out-of-the-box programs that maybe laboratorians are not necessarily considering.
Yeah, so, no person on the planet really learns well in the talking head type scenario. After the first 20 minutes, pretty much everything else is you forget that the minute you walk out the door. You learn, but you retain more in interactive type settings where you're able to have conversation and dialogue versus just someone presenting information to you. And even with the professional societies, they mainly are putting on things that have to do with just the laboratory, right? It's not necessarily, you got to move beyond that, right? It's not just teaching you more about the lab. Most people already know everything they need to know about the lab anyway. It's moving beyond those things. It's developing the leader within you, how to lead people, how to influence people, how to inspire people, helping people understand how to dream bigger than themselves. See, that motivates and that inspires people. So, yeah, they need to look for interactive type of programs, and there are a lot of them out there. I do some. I know that you have some interactive type of programs, and some of the gurus that are out there, John Maxwell, Jim Rome, Zig Ziglar, they all have these programs that are out there that help you move more into the leadership space. Because at the end of, if you get outside of the hospital lab in terms of leadership position, and let's say you're in the hospital still, they're not going to be asking you about, what's the person's CBC results were, and did the H&H match up, and was there electrolytes imbalance. They're going to be asking you that. They're going to be asking you questions around leadership. So this person is not performing. So what do we need to do to help get this person engaged? So how do we handle this situation? How do we handle these crucial conversations, risk management type stuff? So you have to develop yourself in those areas. But I agree with you. I mean, interaction is definitely more important than going to a seminar and a talking head. So there are a lot of webinars, online webinars, where you can go that are interactive and engaging, that help you better understand leadership and developing the leader within you.
As you talk about developing, so what one book would you say for somebody who needs to read a leadership book and is going to give them a great jump start? What book would you recommend?
Well, before I would tell them to read a leadership book, I would tell them to read the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. You see,
that's a good
because
one.
that book is it's about mindset shifting. You see, and when you shift your mindset, then everything else, you're open up to everything else. So now you read Think and Grow Rich, and what I like in this book, in chapter 2 on the desire, he says, any person that wins at an undertaking must be willing to burn his ships and cut all sources of retreat. Only by doing so can they develop that mindset known as a burning desire to win. So you got to have an all-encompassing burning desire to win in everything that you do. So now, once you do that and you open yourself up to this, Tywauna, then all of a sudden going to a class on attitude or equipping or self-improvement or teamwork or relationships or leadership, then all of a sudden those courses make sense to you then. You see, because now you're opened up your whole way of thinking, and you push your limits of growth, and you got away from the science courses. You don't need to go take another course on the new things happening in clinical chemistry or serology's greatest advancement. You don't need to take any of those courses anymore. Now you need to start taking courses on I'm serious. I mean, I'm just being real. I love the lab. I still have my license. I keep it up, and I haven't worked in a lab since 1996, and I don't plan on working in any labs. However, you got to go do something else, right? So if you want to read a book, go to Think and Grow Rich first. Then the next book you should get is, I would tell you, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And that book is going to help you with understanding what a leader is. Or you can read the 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader, right? So now you understand what a leader is. And then you move right into the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. It's all about then growth mindset stuff. Then you go into a book like Put Your Dream to the Test. Right? So those are books that's going to challenge you, make you think different, make you grow yourself, and I guarantee you it will help you. If you want more money in your life, you got to start reading books like this, and you'll get more money in life. If you want a promotion from the bench, you got to start reading books like this or going to seminar webinars. that are teaching things like that, that's what's going to help you. Getting more deep into the science, and that's not going to help you, because not one CEO is sitting there thinking about just of a hospital, is thinking about just the science. He's thinking about how to manage all those people that's in that building, how to lead them into a new era, into a new direction right now. And he has doctors on the team and those type people on the team who are going to take care of the science part. That's not his job to worry about. So if you want to be a leader, it's the same thing if you're in a lab director. You don't need to understand all the science anymore. Now you need to start thinking about, how am I going to motivate, lead, and inspire? How am I going to change my lab from a cost center to a profit center? That's not about the science. That's about the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And when I think about everything that you said, I think that is critical in being able to transition from the bench to any other leadership role or role in the laboratory. What do you think about mentorship and coaching, like having a mentor and having a coach? I know in our industry we hear you need a mentor, you need a mentor, you need a mentor. And for lab people, when they hear you need a coach, that feels more in the lab space. When we hear coaching, it sounds like it's like it's a corrective behavior, like I've done something wrong and now you are giving me coaching. So can you talk a little bit because, it could be coaches out here and there's lab people, I don't want no coach. Like, listen, I'm trying to do my job and I'm trying to do it well and I do not need no coaching.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about the difference between a mentor and a coach, and do you need both or, in order to be able to move up?
Sure, yeah, and they both can help you. A mentor can be a coach, or a coach can be your mentor, right? They all have a different function, but at the end of the day, what they're designed to do is to help you go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 and level 5. Okay, so you can have a mentor. You can call them a mentor or a coach. You can have a person that's in the lab that's going to help take you. Someone that's ahead of you. Okay, can be your mentor. They can be your coach. Now you want to get someone that's outside the laboratory to be your mentor or your coach, right? Again, you want someone that's ahead of you, that's running ahead of you, to be on your side so that you can bounce ideas off of, see where you're, may need to do a course correct or make some changes. I would tell you, don't get caught up over the term. Whether you call them a mentor or you call them a coach. They're designed, just like a sports coach is designed to help lead a team. A mentor is designed to help you really lead yourself. They just help facilitate it. The coach is doing the exact same thing, okay? They're not there to just tell you what to do. They're to help you. They pull out of you what you already know you should do. You see, you should find a mentor or coach that has the heart of a teacher. And how are you going to know if they have a heart of a teacher? If they're willing to ask you questions and listen to what you said, versus just telling you what to do. You see, because I don't need another Cedrick. I need the best Tywauna that there can be, right? And you don't need another Tywauna. You need another, Marissa to be the best Marissa can be, whoever that person is, right? So the person who has the heart of a teacher is going to ask you a lot of questions. Good leaders ask great questions. That's another great, actually, it's a great program, Tywauna, that people can go to and to understand how to ask great questions. But a mentor or a coach is going to help you with this, and they're going to help take you, again, to a level that you can't go on your own. and everybody needs them. I have them. Now, I'm sitting here as a person that's retired, that has all the money that I need and resources that I need. But I have a mentor, and I have a coach, people that's running ahead of me. Because here's the thing, Tywauna, I also have people that are running behind me that I need to be a mentor or a coach for.
Absolutely. I love that. You are absolutely right. You need a mentor or coach that's ahead of you that can be able to show you something. So that is absolutely great information that you have shared. In our last few moments, I just want to ask kind of a fun question. But if there were to be a book written about your laboratory career, Cedrick, what would the title be? And what would the back cover of the book summary say?
Yeah. So the title of the book would be Ordinary to Extraordinary. Now, I know the laboratorians are going to say, oh, the word is not extraordinary, it's extraordinary. Yeah, I don't like that word. See, I'm a leader. I make my own words. Ordinary to extraordinary is what the book would look like, and the word extra would be in all caps. And then the summary would say, he was a person that never accepted limitations. He never accepted the concept of the status quo. He always pushed his limits of growth. He was a dreamer, a visionary, and a person of influence. He went from ordinary to extraordinary. That's what it would say.
Ooh, I like that. All you need is a cape right there. And as we know, some leaders, super leaders, wear lab coats, and that you just said it with your book. I like that. Let me know when I can pick that up and where I can pick that up. I am speaking it into existence today on the show.
Okay. I actually have an outline for that book already, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
Okay, well, let's get it done since you are retired. But as we know about retired folks, they stay busier than people who are not. So, Cedrick, what last leadership tidbits or personal growth tidbits can you leave the lab community with that they can use to excel inside and outside of the lab?
Yeah, always look for opportunities to lead. Always look for opportunities to network outside of the lab. See, I know that you love your job. I know that, but here's the thing. I know that you also want to go to a higher level. And in order to do that, you have to be a good networker. You have to be able to get out from beyond yourself. And here's the thing I'll leave the audience with. See, those who know how to do a job will always have a job. But those who know why will always be their boss. You see? So you got to get beyond yourself and look for opportunities to understand the why. Now, you already know the how. You know how to do the lab. You forgot more about laboratory than most people will ever know. You don't need to know more of that. Now it's starting to build yourself, and you got to start being able to build yourself. And I love what John Maxwell says. He says, leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So become a better person of influence.
Absolutely. Well, Cedrick, that was awesome. As always, I expected nothing less from you. So how can our listeners stay connected with you and follow you and maybe get into some of your programs for people that's ready to go to the next level?
Yeah, so the easiest way to do that is to go to, LaFleur Leadership Institute.com. That's our website. And LaFleur is LaFleur. So it's LaFleur Leadership Institute.com. The next way is to friend me on Facebook. We have our LaFleur Leadership Facebook page, but on my personal page, because I'm about leadership development and helping people grow and become bigger and better than themselves. And so just look me up on Facebook, Cedrick, Cedrick, LaFleur on Facebook. Friend me, and you'll see all the stuff that we're doing and different programs that we offer. In fact, right now, we are offering the 5 essentials of Think and Grow Rich. So if you want to get into a Think and Grow Rich webinar right now, you have the opportunity, and I can send out the link if you need me to. But it's the 5 essentials of Think and Grow Rich, and then the other one is the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. Right now, we're signing up people for January for both of those programs, and we can get you the link for that if you want. But reach out on my Facebook page or on my website, and we can get you engaged and signed up and get you taking your laboratory career from step 1 to step 5.
Awesome. I love that. And yes, I will include that link for our listeners so that they can sign up. So thank you so much, Cedrick, for taking the time out of your schedule today to let me interview you and share those nuggets with the laboratory community. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And can I say one thing before we leave? So, folks, Tywauna is a laboratorian. She's living in a lab every day. But she's also a person of influence. She's also a person who is in the leadership development space in Tywauna. If you know Tywauna and you're looking to grow yourself and you're looking to do something different, Tywauna has a program that has about 9 different courses in it that can help walk you through a journey where you start at first base, and then you move on around the second base, and you go around the third base, and then you come on home. And in that program, she's going to teach you about ethics. She's going to teach you about mentoring, attitude, leadership, success, teamwork, building relationships, and self-improvement. All of those programs you can get from her. And let me tell you what, if you want to change your trajectory in the laboratory or outside the laboratory, you need to sign up for one or all of those programs, and it's going to help you change the course of your life. I guarantee you that. You see, I come from the lab, and I know the programs that she has and what it can do for you. I know she didn't want me to do that or say that, but I'm just telling you, folks, if you want to change what you do and how you do things, get registered for those programs, because she has the goods to take you to a whole nother level. So, sorry, Tywauna, but
I appreciate that, Cedrick. That was very nice of you, and I really appreciate it. And you're right. All of those programs are in my Standout Leader Academy, and our inaugural Founders cohort will be starting in January. So people can go to Standout Leader Academy for information on how to get selected for that inaugural class. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it. Very excited about taking these leaders on a journey.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in and checking out this episode of Elaborate Topics with your co-host for this episode, Tywauna Wilson, and my special guest, Cedrick LaFleur. If you like what you heard today and want to listen to previous shows, which I highly recommend that you do, subscribe at directimpactbroadcasting.com, or you can check us out on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're there. Remember to send us an email at elaboratetopics@directimpactbroadcasting.com if you want to learn more about the show, or if you want to be on the show, be a guest, you can send us an email, or you can fill out the application at directimpactbroadcasting.com. So please tune in next week to hear from another amazing leader on another awesome episode. Until then, have an amazing day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Elaborate Topics. where your hosts discussed relevant strategies for laboratory professionals. Please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and listen to us on directimpactbroadcasting.com. Stay tuned for another episode with information you can use to excel in your laboratory career.